Welcome back to the Sports Business Take Podcast, your home for sports industry news with a little personality. I'm Paul Hine. He is Zach Creekmore. How you doing today, Zach?
I'm doing good today, Paul. Excited for it's a Friday recording. It's the start of the weekend. We're getting moving, and
Absolutely.
I've had a good week, so I'm excited. How you doing today, brother?
Absolutely. It's been kind of a light week for me, although I have biked like almost 4 miles already today, just straight up from going to class. Like my Friday morning 8 a.m., which is unfortunate, and I won't do again for any of the semesters that I'm remaining here. But it's over a mile away. It's quite literally all the way across campus. So biking there in like 30-degree weather is tough, and then it's like a mile to bike here to the library from my dorm. So like yeah, I'm probably a little over 3.5 miles right now for the
That's
for
what
the
it's
day.
about, though. We're getting the steps, getting the miles in, getting the
No, for
kilometers.
sure. I actually love biking around campus compared to walking because like I can get to class in 5 minutes, and I see a lot of my friends are like taking 20 minutes to walk to class, and I'm like, no, I'm not cutting out that time because it allows me to actually plan out my time to where I can do more, and like
Hmm.
not have to block out 25 minutes to walk to class if I have to, because some classes like I said can be like a mile away. So it just depends on what you have that day. There's that. Halloween weekend last weekend was pretty fun. I'd say it's like the first Halloween in college I've really gotten to experience. I mean, you know how it was at St. Joe's. Got shut down super fast. So yeah, that was fun. When was the last time we recorded? 2 weeks ago?
just about, just
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
okay.
We missed
So
last week.
sports events. Did we record before I put out the football video for when we beat Wagner?
I don't know.
I don't. I
We
think
may
it was
have.
that weekend. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, okay, so yes, it was that weekend. So I think we recorded, and then I worked a hockey game on that Thursday night. We were playing UConn, and dude, it was my favorite event that I've worked here so far. They won in shootouts in overtime.
That's
It was
sick.
so cool filming that, and like so my boss made like a hype video of the overtime goals, like the shootout goals, because one of them was absolutely nasty. Like the first one that we got was absolutely nasty. It went for like 7 people. So it was like we got one goal, then they got one goal, and then a bunch of people didn't get goals, and then we got the last one and won. But
Nice.
the first one of the shootouts was an insane move, and I had a great angle on it. So he used like part of my angle, and then we had like 3 other different people, so we cut together like a bunch of different angles to make a hype reel for it, and it got picked up by Bleacher Report and Spit and Chicklets.
That's sick.
Yeah, I
Dude,
know.
that's
I
actually
thought it was
so
pretty
hype.
cool. I'm like, something that I filmed got put on like a national scale. Like that's
Yeah.
really cool. And I made my own hype video from the whole game, which was probably one of my favorite ones that I've done since being here. Got a lot of positive feedback from people on that one. And then the next day, football won against Wagner, and I made a hype reel for them. So
Mm.
that was a huge weekend. And then didn't really work any events during the week last week, and then did A10 women's soccer playoffs. It was their quarterfinals, I think. So now and then they just won their semis, I think, yesterday or the day before. So they're on to the championship game. I think our men's soccer team's also in the championship game as well. So fall sports doing really well here. Winter sports, I believe next week I'm doing hockey, women's basketball, and football.
Nice.
And I have women's basketball on Sunday. So I'm excited for basketball, man. Like that was what I got my start in at St. Joe's, and I feel like I have a decent amount of experience in that. So super excited to do some stuff for that.
Absolutely. I love
What's
it.
going on with you? I know you did your job shadow with Idea Quest the other day.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Excellent. Lots of really great insights. Got to sit on a lot of really, really cool meetings and just kind of observe. So just trying to absorb as much information as possible and learn from some people with some excellent insights and some amazing experience. So really, really blessed to be able to do that. And then actually I've been working on a really, really cool case study. I don't know if you've been following kind of the Red Bull group since Jurgen Klopp joined them. But Jurgen Klopp became the head of global soccer, and I don't think his role has been massive in these acquisitions. But Red Bull has been super aggressive in their club acquisition strategy recently. So they've recently acquired Paris FC, based out of France, with a couple of different owners and local people, and are actually now working to possibly acquire Torino, based out of Turin. So a team in the Serie A, which is a club that Red Bull, or a league that Red Bull has not had any involvement in until this year. So super excited for that. And I've done some really cool research and been trying to put together and learn Adobe while doing it. So actually really enjoying it.
Awesome. Wait, which Adobe thing?
So I've been using Adobe Illustrator, I've been
Okay,
using Photoshop, I've been using InDesign, mostly those three, but I've used like one
nice,
or two other tools also.
nice.
So just
Yeah,
kind of going the full suite.
I want to get into Illustrator for sure.
Yeah.
Like I'm
It's
not.
hard, dude. It's hard
Yeah,
to
I'm sure
figure
it
out.
is. I'm not good at drawing either, so like that's like one of my barriers is like how do I turn that into a skill? Uh,
Yeah.
and Photoshop, I'm gonna take like over the winter, I'm gonna take like a graphic design online course to try to get better
Nice.
at Photoshop. Because like obviously me wanting to work in social media, that's one of the things that's huge is graphic design. Actually, for the club that I'm in, McCormick Student Leaders, we just had like our elections, and one of the positions is like graphic design chair.
Mm.
So they manage like all the social media, and I want to do something like that, but I don't have enough Photoshop experience to do it. Like I make R graphics, and that's about the extent of my Photoshop experience. And I wouldn't say our graphics are great. I
We're growing. We're getting there.
subpar if in the scale of Photoshop skills. I think that's just one of those things that you kind of learn one thing at a time. Like this semester, I've really been focusing on trying to learn Premiere and the video editing software with that. I've gotten a lot better at that, so I'm trying to focus on that right now, and then we'll get to Photoshop, and then I want to learn how to do After Effects too, like
Mm.
animation and stuff like that. That would be really cool, and I think that would add like a whole new dimension to my videos where like it's just a little more eye catching. So I'm looking forward to that. But
Absolutely. Love
speaking of eye catching, you want to talk about
that.
the new women's pro baseball league that starts
Let's
in
do it.
2026?
Let's do it. Let's do it. So we have the new Women's Pro Baseball League starting in 2026, also known as the WPBL. 6 teams, founded by Justin Siegel and Keith Stein. First active women's baseball league in the U.S. Planning to have a 40-game season, either college or minor league stadiums. So they're still really workshopping the entire concept of it. I believe they're also still looking for players. So still very, very much a growing asset. Also, still looking for TV partner for their debut season, playoff, and championship. So, super excited. Paul, would love to hear your thoughts before we get into the quotes.
Yeah, man, this is something that's never been seen before on this type of a scale. I think the one other time we really did see this was when in World War II there was a women's pro baseball league, but only because so many of the MLB players were off fighting in the war that America needed, the women to step in, and they did, and it was a great success, and the league did very well, and they have their own section in the Hall of Fame, and that was an amazing time in our country. But I think we haven't really seen after that ended, like after the guys came back from the war, we never really saw it revitalized until
Mm,
now. And I think this is that chance to kind of celebrate the history of what did go on with that league, but then also create new opportunities for today. I think, and it's very different now, the landscape of what they're going to be walking into compared to the 1940s. There was no TV deals like there are today. There were no streaming deals like there are today. There was no social media to promote themselves. So I think they're going to have a much easier time in terms of getting the word out there about it. But I think the part that does concern me right now is like you said, they're still looking for players. Obviously, you're going to need enough players to field the league. So what happens if that doesn't happen? But I'm sure it will, because there are so many girls across the country who, you know, got forced into playing softball because eventually in baseball it just wasn't going to work out. Like they weren't going to get a scholarship if they wanted to play in college or whatever the case may be. So I think this will give those girls who did play baseball for a while. I know I played against a girl in Little League who's actually really good. But then once we got to like middle school age, never saw her again. She probably played softball. So
mm.
I think there's there's this clear separation in our society where we've been talking about this in sociology of sport actually, where you kind of get grouped into separate groups. I guess there's no better way to say that at at a certain age. And I think this will kind of reverse that and inspire more young women to try baseball, and to stick with it if they're already playing. And I think that was kind of their goal. The quote from their owner: "I'm so excited that there will finally be a professional women's baseball league. It is a dream come true for all the girls and women who play America's pastime." This is Siegel who's saying this. The Women's Pro Baseball League is here for all girls and women who dream of a place to showcase their talents and play the game they love. We've been waiting over 70 years for a professional baseball league we can call our own. Our time is now. I love that statement. The "our time is now" message is super powerful, and I think they are really going to capitalize on the continued growth that we've been seeing in women's sports with the NWSL, with the WNBA. I think people are really going to rally around this, or at least that's the hope.
Mm. Absolutely, and well said. You shared a lot of really great thoughts there, and it is definitely an exciting time, right? And the statement of "it is our time now" is very powerful. But as you shared, the outstanding factors that haven't been cited yet, the buy-in from different cities, the buy-in from different colleges, is definitely going to be difficult to earn, especially because you're battling a pre-built infrastructure for softball in terms of college, and we know professional women's softball hasn't been immensely successful in terms of
Yeah.
TV and naming rights and all these other things, but it does exist, and they do have some form of leagues or some form of small competition. I know I've seen it on ESPN at some point.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure to what scope that exists, but it does.
It,
So
in the
interested to
public
see.
view, it almost feels like college softball is bigger than professional softball.
Right, which
Um,
I would say is true. It factually
yeah.
is. Um, and I would say from that we're looking at, okay, how can you redefine this collegiate and high school system to make your baseball, your women's baseball league, your women's professional baseball league, the WPBL as we're calling it, the elite and the highest level, so you can build that aspiration for people. If softball
Definitely.
in college is still the aspiration and getting that education is still the aspiration for young women seeking to play baseball and softball, then you're not going to succeed. If they can build that aspiration throughout high schools, throughout colleges, and get serious buy in into this new system, we can see massive success.
I
And they kind
agree.
of talk about wanting to build that talent pipeline or that youth system. And I think that'll be really important for their league. And if they can create buy in and interact with people uniquely in that manner, we can see a lot of success. But they've got to win young hearts and young minds and got to get schools in on this process.
Yeah, absolutely. And in creating that talent pipeline, I think it would be very smart if they took the approach, kind of like the Savannah Bananas, who we're going to talk about later today, but where they did a tour and kind of showed their product all over the country, and tried to inspire people to play banana ball. And now we're seeing them do youth camps, and we'll talk about that later. But
Mm.
I think that style of any new league that's really trying to grow, especially in this case, it would be great for them to maybe do like a tour style where instead of 6 host cities and they only travel back and forth between those cities, go to different colleges, go to different minor league stadiums, go around the country to show the product once you have it established. And maybe that's like a year 2 thing. Maybe that's not a year 1 thing. Maybe year 1 is you have the 6 host cities, you start getting some fan bases established, you start getting your social media developed and your product out there, and then people will come year 2 to the tour. But I think that will be really key for them because they aren't going to spread the word with only having 6 host cities. Like, that's not a wide enough coverage across the entire country to build that talent pipeline like you were talking about, and to really create that thought in the mind of young athletes like, I want to go play women's pro baseball. I think in order to do that, they need to spread their product across a larger area. And I think that tour, like we were talking about, going to different colleges, even potentially collabing with the biggest college baseball teams that there are. I'm just going to use this because the Bananas played them last night and it was just top of mind for me. But go to Clemson, play a game there. Go to BC, play a game there, etc. I think that tour style will kind of attract people from different areas, and then you start building that talent pipeline like you were talking about.
Paul, well said, excellent take. And I really thoroughly agree. The point you're making is I want to look at this league as a young asset. Like us as young people, like many young recent graduates, like many young students, this league has to network. And if they do
Yeah.
not go and take their product and go and try to show it to people in different places, and they say, you have to come to us, that's not going to work. They have
Yeah.
to go to the audience. If
Yeah.
they
You
go
always
to
have a
them
more
and they
elegant
just
way of saying what I was saying.
thank you. If they take their product and bring it to people and create engagement, if they interact with high schools, interact with colleges, if they interact with professional softball teams, right, and show like, hey, this is a new avenue for you. By
Absolutely.
networking, by connecting throughout the entire nation, well, that's where they're going to really find value. So I agree that tour system that Jesse Cole and the Savannah Bananas have used to really grow their product is absolutely genius. And I think we should see many young leagues start to apply it, whether it be women's pro hockey, women's pro baseball, whether it be
The 3-on-3 basketball league.
303 basketball league. Maybe we're talking about golf and the Tigers' new golf league, right? Maybe we're
Yeah.
talking about as well like slam ball as a product when we talked about that last year. Maybe
True.
they could have done a
Yeah.
tour, right?
I forgot
We're
about
looking.
slam ball. Wow.
Oh, they've kind of gone in the dust. They didn't get the TV deal they needed, from what I've heard. But in
Next
reality, right?
episode, I want to look up if they're coming back or not.
Absolutely, that would be interesting.
Okay.
But we're talking about a Harlem Globetrotters type of event. Like, can you sell yourself as an event that is, yes, Harlem Globetrotters and Savannah Ball entertainment, but also sport concepts, right?
You know,
Can
it's
you
so
create a
funny.
sport concept that is travelable, that you can bring it to
Yeah.
a city, bring an audience in, win hearts and win minds, and have
Yeah.
those fans emulating and sharing on social media your players?
Yeah. I it's funny to me whenever the concept of like a traveling team comes up, the Globetrotters come up, and it's super funny. We'll talk about this later, but I listened to Jesse Cole's book over the summer, as you know, and he like hates the Bananas being compared to the Globetrotters. It's
Oh, you're
super
welcome.
funny because they're just a completely different product, and
Absolutely.
I think especially in that case, the Bananas don't always win. It is competitive, and we'll talk about how it's going to get even more competitive later. But in this case, when they're just starting out, I think with them trying to have 6 host cities, I think that'll be good to get established. Year one, like this is our base.
Mm.
Where do you think the best cities for them to be would be? Is it the biggest markets? Is it New York? Is it Boston? Is it smaller markets? Like maybe Salt Lake City or somewhere like that. What do you think?
It's a great question. I think there's pros and cons to both concepts. If I was to do it, I would say I want a mix of both, but I also want to put the team acquisitions in the hands of people that are invested in the product and allow those people to pick the cities they bring it to. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, there's considerations to that of, okay, I want this big investor to come in. They want to bring it to this city. I like that idea, but this city doesn't really have the assets that our league is going to need. So I need to try to push them in a different direction.
Right.
But I would say, like, I want to go and put it in a city where there is a strong baseball fan base, where there is a strong female sports fan base. As such, I think New York is a great asset, right? But we also have to then
Yeah.
consider, like, how can we partner with existing baseball franchises to possibly make our product valuable and work? Because if you're trying to build your own stadium in New York City, you're not going to really be able to do it, right? Look at
Yeah.
Red Bulls, all of that's all in Jersey, right?
There's a lot of development there already, you know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of space left in New York.
Absolutely. So then you're trying to capitalize on maybe a partnership with the Yankees, maybe a partnership with the Mets. Can you capitalize on that and build that? Or maybe you're trying to partner with a college that's in the city in the local area. But I really think that big franchises have a big boost and a big bonus, but also you have to then consider, like, now we have a really strong East Coast team, flight prices, all of this. How is that going to mean when we're trying to travel? Maybe if we also put a team in LA, right?
Yeah, I
3 hour
think you need
difference,
that West Coast East
massive
Coast
flight.
dynamic.
right? You need that East Coast West Coast dynamic, but it's also expensive to have that. So how much money and how much are investors going to interact with this league is really the question. For me, right, it would be based on how much investment we have, but I like the idea of a small franchise in a small city where there maybe not already be a really large entity because you can get really great involvement with fans. Look at Savannah with the Savannah Bananas, right? Savannah doesn't really have a sports franchise. They have smaller franchises, so they got a lot of buy-in from that immediately.
Yeah.
Look at Vermont Green with the entire state of Vermont, really. They're
Yeah,
a
true.
fourth tier, right? Fourth tier soccer team, and they have
Hmm.
2,500 people showing up to games every week, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
amazing amount of buy-in do you get from that? And that's the question that I would ask. So can we find those types of markets where there's baseball interest, but also
Yeah.
the infrastructure to build something, but also kind of like a space where we can really get people bought into this easily?
I think my mind kind of immediately goes to the South
Mm,
because they don't have a ton of professional baseball teams,
true.
but baseball is huge down there. You know what I mean? Like, so I think, we're talking about Atlanta, the Braves, you have the Rays in Tampa, and then you have the Marlins, and that's it.
Mm,
That's just Florida and Georgia. So you think about the Carolinas don't have a professional baseball team at all. That's a good place to start. UNC is very good at baseball. Maybe you partner with them. You talk about like Mississippi, Alabama, great colleges in terms of like the SEC is insane with baseball. They are the cream of the crop. That's the highest level of college baseball is in the SEC. Talking about Louisiana, Louisiana doesn't have a professional baseball team. That's another
mm.
place where LSU is historically pretty good at baseball, has been recently, and that's another market that you could maybe build in. And maybe you partner with those colleges. Maybe you go to the same cities as those colleges are in. I think with Alabama, Tuscaloosa is a great place to start. You got Auburn close by, and you have Alabama there. So I think that's a really good place to start. And if you're doing that tour style, then it's easy to go around because there's a ton of colleges down there that you can go around to and really present your product on.
Absolutely, Paul. Well said. And I think you're looking at the right areas, right? We're thinking about small cities where have massive sports fan bases. They're really supportive of their colleges. So that's what you're battling with, but also really supportive of their minor league franchises, especially in the Carolinas. I think of minor league baseball, it's massive. So seeking
Absolutely.
to find those networks, I think that's an absolutely right move.
Yeah, and otherwise, I'm thinking like Midwest. There's a lot of Midwestern states that maybe don't have a team.
Mm,
Like you have one in Detroit, you have one in Minnesota, you have two in Chicago, but then that's about it. You have minor league baseball in Iowa. Maybe put a team somewhere in the Midwest. So I think that's a good market to tap into. And then I look out west for the rest, and then I would kind of. I think Texas actually would be a good place if you're looking like southern but middle of the country. I'm thinking Texas is a great place. There's a lot of minor league baseball there. They also have two professional teams. There's a talent pipeline for baseball that comes out of Texas. A lot of the best players, college and the pros, a lot of them come out of Texas. So you're talking like there's already that infrastructure there in place to help these young women who want to go play in this professional league advance into it. So I think that's a good location for a franchise as well.
excellent take, Paul. And really well said, right? We're looking at areas of there is infrastructure here, there is athlete and player interest, right? There's passionate people, passionate fan bases, and also there's like the financial infrastructure to really buy into it. So I like the Tuscaloosa take. I like Alabama, excellent market to pick into. A lot of people who work in sports come out of these areas, and a lot of people who are into management come out of these areas. So super interesting, and I like that take. But really trying to spread our product around where one we can easily do tours, but get investment from the Northeast, get investment from the Southeast, get investment from the Midwest, get investment from upper Midwest, get investment from the West Coast, right? How can you engage with every single one of these markets? But at the same time, we also recognize that adds up quickly and that becomes expensive.
Oh,
So
for sure.
how do we be
Yeah.
smart about our spending? And it really depends on investor buy-in and how much we can get from that. So interested to see where that
No, for
goes.
sure. Without
I like the hypothetical of where we're going with it.
without investment, I don't think any of this really works. Without the investment, the tour style doesn't work because there's too many travel expenses.
Mm,
So I think finding the right investor for them, like you said, is going to be key to their success. But speaking of travel leagues, so we mentioned the Savannah Bananas several times throughout this podcast already. So we mentioned how they started out with actually they started out in their stadium, but then they expanded to their world tour. They played in a bunch of MLB stadiums this past season, including Fenway. I've seen them in person when they played in Sea Dogs in Portland in 2023. Amazing experience, and now they're launching their own league.
mm.
So this is completely different. Right now, they have 3 teams. They're expanding to 4 in 2025. And then in 2026, they're expanding to 6 teams and creating a 60-game season with playoffs and a championship. So when I saw this, I followed Jesse Cole on LinkedIn. I'm connected with him. He put this out. I was like, I'm so excited for this to happen. Unbelievable opportunities for so many people, and for them to grow their game and impact the way that they impact people is unlike any I've ever seen in sports.
Mm.
I feel lucky that I got to see it in person, and I hope I can see it again eventually, and potentially even be involved with it. I think them expanding to 6 teams, they're gonna need more than a lot of their broadcasts right now are on YouTube or on ESPN Plus. They're gonna need a solid in writing TV deal with somebody like a Fox, somebody like a CBS, uh, an NBC, somebody like that, where you can clearly say, okay, they are going to broadcast our games all over the country, and this is how we're going to grow our product. They're doubling their infrastructure, but at the same time, you think about most professional leagues have somewhere around 30 teams. Obviously, they're just starting out, but I think in order to grow their influence, which is already huge through social media, and they do such a good job with their social media influence, but to grow their influence through broadcasting, they're going to need some type of TV deal.
Very true, and well said. You're right, especially if they're building a league format, which means they may be a bit more committed to these areas rather than just being able to freely travel in that
Yeah.
format, right? They may be more committed to those cities, which means that people who are not in those cities and not in that local area probably need a TV way to access that product.
Right. I
So
think they
finding
will
somebody,
still travel like at certain points, but I
I
don't
agree.
think it'll be as often.
I don't think it'll be as frequent. I think they might be more committed to those home bases that they
Yeah.
have, and that this new team will also have in Texas. I forget what city it was stated as. They'll have Savannah. They'll have this Texas home base.
It's the Texas Tailgaters. That's the
Texas
name of the
Tailgaters.
franchise. I can check real quick.
That's our curious fact check of the day.
Yeah, hang on.
Fact
I
check is
will pull it
important,
up.
people. We believe in proper circulation of information.
Okay. So they're playing in multiple locations. So they're
Okay.
playing in San Antonio, Houston, and cities near Dallas and Austin.
Okay. So big. So they're looking at all the big city markets, which is actually kind of
Yeah.
smart, right? Can you
No,
get
I
by the
agree.
entire state of Texas?
You're hitting on all the different points because that's like the biggest state in the country. You're covering a
Absolutely.
lot of
No,
ground.
massive.
Yeah.
And honestly, kind of like really scary because I'm driving 4.5 hours between cities in my own state. What the heck?
Yeah, no, I know.
But that's coming from a state like Connecticut, where we have literally a 2.5 hour drive to get
Same.
across the entire state.
Same. Yeah.
So small state versus big state problems. Everything's better, bigger, apparently. Vamo. But,
Sorry.
right,
My
absolutely
glass.
look into this concept. They need a TV deal, and you're absolutely correct. How do they get it? Could they get it just exclusively through streaming? Is there a lot of other assets and opportunities for them? Yes.
I
I'm not
think
really
they're
sure
big
where
enough
they'll
that
go.
a company is going to give them the opportunity to do this, though.
They're battling with historic products, and that's where I find it difficult. Like, I think what is really cool here is, like, obviously Jesse Cole is building something that's really unique, and people want to buy into that, and you can see the amount of fandom that is there for it. But I almost feel like it's something that, even though it could get on national television in its own independent thing, it's much harder to hold. And I really believe that I see them building their own streaming service more than I see them getting a massive TV deal.
Yeah, and that's kind of the route that they've traditionally gone, at least so far. They've
Mm,
grown their influence to the point where enough people know about them. They're picking up attention, national media wise. They're picking up attention. They have more social media followers than any MLB team. Think about that.
that's massive.
Think about that. Like the fact that is the way that they've existed, and that's how they've developed their fans. That's their goal, right? Is they always prioritize long-term fans over short-term profits. And that was one of the biggest points in their book. This league is the epitome of that, where they're expanding to say, okay, how can we bring our game Banana Ball to more people, make everybody have fun? They're constantly innovating and trying new things. That's the biggest piece of the Bananas that makes them so successful, is they're constantly giving people new experiences. They
Mm,
never get boring. It's always different, right? And I think that's what they love about it. And when I was working with the Sea Dogs, I noticed that. I could see everybody in the crowd so engaged with it in a way that I've never seen at any other sporting event. So I think they're always so forward facing. They just have this ability to develop new concepts that nobody else has, and that's why I'm so excited for this new league. And I think they are too. Jesse said everyone looks at the next chess move, but we're focused on seeing the whole chessboard. If you look
mm,
closely enough, you can see where we're going with Banana Ball. And like we were talking about earlier, building that youth pipeline is such a priority. And I mentioned this earlier in our conversation when we were talking about the Women's Pro Baseball League and their talent development pipeline. The Bananas are now starting to get into that too, right? Because they have developed their product, they've spread it out to an audience that cares about them and that knows about what they're about now, that knows the rules of the game now. We just saw last night Clemson University baseball play the Savannah Bananas because their coach followed them and said, "Hey, this is cool. I want to teach my team the rules and then I want to play them." And they did, and it was an amazing experience. So we're starting to see their influence kind of intersect with the baseball world, where people want to learn how to play Banana Ball and they want to be involved with it. This is also from Jesse. He said building the youth pipeline is another priority. Several of the clinics and tournaments to be known as Banana Ball University will be played next year, and they're just getting started on talent development. They just hosted a youth camp, I believe, about a month ago or a little less, for kids to learn how to play Banana Ball. And I think that's a huge piece for them in developing the next generation of Banana Ball and continuing their long term success, is making sure not only do kids have a great night when they come to the game, but that they know how to play the game when they go home. Because then they can play it with their friends and then they can say, hey, this is something that maybe I have like a great ability to dance or some quirk that, doesn't go well with baseball, but I can fit it into this mold in Banana Ball. And
mm.
that's how I'm going to try to be a professional athlete. And, I think that's what they're really trying to do right now. And it's going to be very successful.
Absolutely. Well,
Sorry, I know
I
I went
love.
on a huge rant there.
No, you're good. I love the rant. And here's the thing: I love the concept and mentality that Banana Ball has as a sport and the freedom it creates for its players. And I cannot
Absolutely.
communicate how
I didn't
important
communicate
that
that, but
is.
that's what I was trying to say.
Well, that is what exactly what you said, right? How important that is for children is unexplainable, right? An
Huge.
environment where
Huge.
you can exclusively be yourself, be honest to that, and explore and celebrate your unique differences and your skill sets, right, is amazing.
Absolutely.
You're not forced
Absolutely.
into a mold, you're forced to innovate and
Absolutely.
create something new and unique. As a young coach, that is what you want to see your kids do. That is what you want to see your players do. If they can
Absolutely.
create mentality where they do and try new things, failure or success, that is where they will have buy-in. Now, if you can sell that to a parent and say your kid should be playing this sport because of that opportunity, psychologically, mentally, the opportunity it means for them as professionals, right? That is invaluable. So really excited to see where Jesse Cole goes with this. Really excited to see where the Savannah Bananas go with this. Also, in terms of the TV deals, and this is me ranting with your rant. So we're here for it.
Okay. Yeah.
Different from the kid engagement, how do they innovate TV consumption of their product? Right? They have a really, really great buy-in with the in-person audience. How do they control, or where do they get the buy-in from this TV audience? Is it as valuable an experience?
True. Or do they say even screw the traditional route, like we don't need the TV audience? And that's possible. like they have defied so many logics of sports, or things that people hadn't done before, and that's their whole thing, is taking their own path. So I wonder if in their view they don't need the TV deal. They want to grow their sport their way and really expand it to everybody that they can and impact as many people as they can. And if the TV deal is not a part of that, who am I to say that they're wrong? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that's maybe something that I'll hopefully get to be a part of someday. And I mean, I was just thinking about it. Like, I want to apply with them this summer. I think you know that. I've said that on here before. So I found out that there's like a wait list that you can get on to find out about opportunities with them. And so I'm on that now. And hopefully I think the summer internships are coming out sometime in November. So hopefully soon I'll be applying with them for next summer. But, even if I don't get it for next summer, I think there's going to be a lot of new opportunities for people who are working in sports as well,
Mm.
with the expansion of this new league, to see what Banana Ball is all about and to really be part of the experience. And I think a lot of people in sports get into sports for the same reason that both of us have, is that's where they think that they can impact people to the highest degree. And I think that's exactly what Banana Ball is going to do with this championship league.
Absolutely, well said. It is super exciting. Also, I thought when I first heard the name, I thought of the Champions League, and that's always a good, I guess, relationship in terms of connection. I want to see Jesse Cole come up with an intro song for every single game, and how much funky fun they can have with that.
Yeah.
Just because Champions League and the Champions League intro is iconic, what can Jesse Cole do with a little bit of Mozart? And how iconic can the Bananas make that moment? That's
Yeah.
my interest.
He's so creative. I mean, in listening to his book, he takes so much of his inspiration from Disney, which is actually a
Mm.
very interesting source to take inspiration from, considering like you're a sports franchise. And that's why they don't go the traditional route, because they can see outside of the box in a way that other sports franchises don't, because they're
Mm.
not limited to the rules of a commissioner and a league that's had 100-year history. They're making their own history. So I think the Banana Ball Championship League is the next step in that, and I would be very excited to be a part of that if I get the opportunity to.
Absolutely. Message to Jesse Cole and everybody at Savannah Bananas. Great work. We appreciate you. We are inspired by
Yeah,
you.
definitely,
And thank you for your hard work and revolutionizing and being super
definitely.
innovative with sport. It is
I think it would be
inspirational.
really cool for me personally to learn how to be that creative. It's like a giant think tank. You know what I mean? That's the best word I can describe it as, is a giant think tank to figure out how can we make our fans have the best experience. And I think that is something that every team should be engaging in, but that often gets lost in the shuffle of revenue and ticket sales and merchandising and all of that.
Mm,
So I think that the way that they are different is very noble and very true to what sports should be all about.
very well said. Very well said.
That's I think that's about my spiel on the Bananas.
I agree. I think that's a good way to conclude as
Yeah, for sure. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next week.
well.